What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It has been a while since I posted a video, but I am so excited to bring you the build that I'm going to be playing for the Phrecia event starting tomorrow. Now, before we even get into anything, there's a massive disclaimer. This build is going to be awesome, but you should not play it. Now, that might come off as a challenge to some, and if that is the case for you, that's totally fine. This build is going to be incredibly powerful, provided I can make it work, but it has a lot of things that you need to solve. We're going to be playing Tainted Pact, Penance Brand of Dissipation, Bog Shaman. This build was not possible until now due to some changes to the game over the last couple of years, and also the Phrecia League. Very specifically, we're going to be working with the interaction between Nightblood and Runegraft of the Witchmark. So, Nightblood says, skills gain a base life cost equal to 25% of your base mana cost, which is very low and not very important. But it also says, spells you cast yourself gain added physical damage equal to 80% of the life cost. It's very difficult, normally, to scale a lot of life cost. However, with the addition of the Runegraft of the Witchmark, you can now make it so spells cost 8% of your life. In a build that stacks life, that number can get extraordinarily high. That 8% also gets scaled with mana multipliers on support gems and any other multipliers that you have in your character. As you can see here, our Penance Brand costs us 10,000 life cost each time, which is an extraordinarily high cost. Now, we'll get back to the life cost in a second. What makes this Ascendancy special for this? Nightblood gives us a massive amount of damage, and then Sanguine Power allows for easy access to really high life total. When I first started theory crafting a build for this Phrecia League, I wanted to build around the Sanguine Power notable because of how easy it is with the Breach Tree to make gear. Now, most of the gear on this build is going to be self-craftable just by using the Breach Tree. I'm not going to make a build guide for every single gear piece, but if you want to see what I'm doing, you can stop by at my stream starting tomorrow, twitch.tv/AER0___. I'm going to be doing all of this live on stream, so make sure to check me out. And if you're going to follow this build, you're going to want to stop by if you have any problems. So we're getting huge life, we're getting huge damage. Toad Pact is giving us a ridiculous amount of area of effect and skill effect duration. Area of effect is great for clear, it's great for explodes. More importantly, we're getting huge skill effect duration, which makes our brands last longer. That makes them do more damage, and it also makes it so we don't have to cast quite as often. We have a huge attachment range for our brands, so we basically throw them out in front of us, and they will bop around and kill everything on the screen, lasting somewhere around 4 to 5 seconds each. So let's get back to this life cost, because this is a big deal. I put this build together and realized that there was one single way that I could possibly recover enough life to make this work. And that's where Tainted Pact comes in. Tainted Pact is a 1C unique that allows you to take chaos damage over time and be healed by it instead of injured by it while you're leeching life. Tainted Pact is a very complicated item. It's not easy to build around, and I've never personally done it myself. That said, I did discover a man named Sticky Jim 8, no relation to Slippery Jim, who has made a number of videos on this subject that I watched and educated myself on how to use this item. I feel very confident that I'm going to be able to make this work, but please keep in mind, if you follow along with this build, you're going to have to solve problems. I highly recommend that you check out Sticky Jim's videos. Down in the description, I will link his channel and the relevant videos. So how does Tainted Pact work? Tainted Pact says that you take chaos damage over time, and then that heals you instead of taking damage while you're leeching life. So this means that if you can poison yourself, reflect a poison using the golden rule, which we do, whatever that poison is will be reflected to you. And we intentionally take more chaos damage over time in order to allow this to heal ourselves for big amounts of life. There are a number of problems that are caused by this item. You need to have a proper leech duration. Leech duration is very complex. Basically, you need to have really big hits, and thankfully, Penance Brand of Dissipation does just that. We are enabling our Tainted Pact full uptime with the Squirming Terror. So this is going to spawn a worm, and anytime you have a brand on the screen, if there's no enemies around, it'll jump to the worm and destroy it. That will spark another leech instance and keep you healing. So let's talk about why Tainted Pact. I know a lot of people are going to be using the Bog Shaman for life stacking. They're going to be playing Blade Vortex. They're going to be playing Righteous Fire. And the Blade Vortex users are going to be using the support gem Sacrifice. It makes it so that when you cast your spell, it sacrifices a portion of your life to give you some chaos damage back. And that support is nice, but it's nowhere near as strong as the setup that we're using here. The only problem with the setup I'm using is it requires an extraordinary amount of recovery that most builds just don't have access to. That's where Tainted Pact comes in. We get so much flat damage from our Nightblood and Runegraft of the Witchmark setup that we don't actually care about gem levels at all. I think it's about 2% more damage to get +1 levels. So it really isn't important at all, which means we can give up the amulet slot. The amulet slot is incredibly powerful for damage, But if you can source your damage elsewhere, you can use your amulet either defensively or otherwise. So that enables this. And Tainted Pact truly is the most recovery possible. I'm hoping to have 6 figures of recovery in the end game, and that's going to allow us to spend 10k life every couple of seconds and not really even think about it. There simply is no other way to solve the life cost of life tap plus Runegraft of the Witchmark plus Nightblood. So not only is it an offensive benefit, but Tainted Pact basically makes you immortal to bursting damage. Provided you have enough life to not get one shot, you pretty much can't die as long as you're leeching. I believe that this is going to be a very difficult event, and you're going to want a very tanky build. The nice thing about this build is it builds tank, and that tank builds more damage. And lastly, the reason that I'm using a Tainted Pact and playing this build is because it simply wasn't possible until now, and I think it's really cool and too cool to pass up. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be difficult, but I think that puzzle is going to be really fun to solve. It's not a new official league start, so I don't feel quite as committed to making a build guide for people to follow along with. I wanted to try something really difficult, and this is the puzzle that I've settled on. So what am I going to do first? Obviously, you cannot league start this. There's a number of things that are required for this swap that we'll go over in a minute. So what am I going to do first? Well, luckily, the Bog Shaman is a really, really cool ascendancy. This allows you to do a lot of different things. You do not have to follow what I'm doing. You just have to be able to get something that's going to get you through your 2 stones, and there are a lot of options there. I'm going to be doing Righteous Fire. I started making a league start guide for Righteous Fire, and someone in my chat goes, "You're just doing the same thing as Pox. Why don't you just follow his guide?" And I said, "Shut up." But you're right. So we're just going to follow Pox's guide at the start to get our 2 stones, because I basically was making the exact same thing that he was making. So there's no sense in doubling up on the work. Shout out to Pox. I'll have a guide to his league start stuff linked down below. Check out his website. He's got all sorts of resources on Righteous Fire, and he's going to be playing Bog Shaman in the coming league. So we're going to be doing Righteous Fire just for the first day or 2 until we can build up a little bit of currency to get the baseline stuff that we need to swap over. So what do we need for the swap? Well, number 1, you're going to be using the leech gem. Later in the game, when you hit hard enough, you won't need as much % leech, so you won't need to use the gem. But early on, it's just a really, really simple solution. You can swap out life tap, even though life tap is big damage. It increases your cost so much that by swapping it with leech, you're going to have no problem recovering the much, much smaller cost. The second thing you need is the Tainted Pact. Of course, these are very cheap. You're going to be able to corrupt them easily. You're going to get things that you want on them, like additional curse, like leech, like resistance, whatever you want to get out of your amulet. You're going to be able to corrupt it for very, very little currency, or just buy the one that you want. The third thing you need is the Squirming Terror. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do this, but the plan is to use a Forbidden Rite in this eventually. It's going to cost a lot of life, so we're going to need a lot of recovery for this. But using a Forbidden Rite in this will have it trigger every half a second while we're mapping and every 2 seconds on bosses, and that's going to cause our cast when damage taken loops to go off. I'm going to explore this route more if this is possible in the late game, but for right now, it's just like a Mortal Call and Void Sphere, so I wouldn't worry too much about that yet. Just having a Squirming Terror with nothing in it is what you need to get going. Number 4, Wrathpith. Wrathpith Globe is probably going to be very, very expensive on day 1. Luckily, we're not starting with this build. We're going to be rolling into it on probably day 2, day 3, day 4. My assumption is that because so many people are going to be trying to get the Wrathpith Globe from the Breach Tree that has the Foulborn modifier for damage over time, that a significant number of Wrathpiths will come into the market. I'm not saying it's going to be cheap. I just don't think it's going to be as expensive as people seem to be dooming about on Reddit. But no matter what it costs, you probably need it. It doesn't necessarily enable anything in the build, but it gives so much damage because we're life stacking that you kind of have to have it. Number 5, Obliteration. Obliteration does 2 things for us. It gives us Explode, which is going to make Penance Brand feel significantly better. And it also gives us Fizz as extra. Not only is that damage, but that Fizz as extra is going to help us have poisons that are big hits on the enemy, which will be reflected to us, which will give us more recovery. The next one I think is the most difficult one. There are a number of solutions, and it's all going to depend on cost. You need a poison chance of probably around 30 to 50%. This is going to change based on how much cast speed you have, how hard you're hitting, is what is going to decide how good it feels to have a certain amount of poison chance. Obviously, 100 would be better, but you don't need to get to 100. So my guess, along with the help of Sticky Gym, is that 30 to 50% will feel pretty good. In order to get there, you can do a few different things. You can get up to 30% as an implicit on gloves from the Eater of Worlds. You can use a Septic Spell Cluster, which I actually currently have in the build here. This is really, really good alongside of a low tolerance node because this makes it so that when you hit a worm, you're hitting them for basically 300% increased damage. And as you can see, what it does to the single poison DPS, it raises it significantly. This single poison DPS here is what your recovery will be when you've only hit one enemy one time. And that'll kind of be your starting recovery. So Septic Spell's low tolerance cluster is definitely good. And then lastly, you can use chance to poison tattoos. These chance to poison tattoos are global chance. They go on intelligence nodes, but they can be expensive. Some leagues they are, some leagues they are not. It's something to keep an eye out for, but you have to solve it some way. So you can kind of choose what you want to do depending on your gear. The next thing you need is Immortal Ambition. Immortal Ambition comes on a belt. If the Glorious Vanity Ahuana Jewel is expensive, you can just go ahead and use the belt. I believe it's the Soul Tether. But ultimately, you want to get a Glorious Vanity in the name of Ahuana. At the start, you just get anyone because they're probably not going to be super accessible early. But this allows us to have this Immortal Ambition Keystone. This says Energy Shield starts at 0. That doesn't matter because we already don't have any. Cannot recharge or regen ES. That also doesn't matter. Lose 5% of ES per second. That also doesn't matter. So we have 3 downsides here, and none of them matter. You just get life leech effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. This is basically just Slayer Overleech, and all you need is this keystone, and there's a bunch of great stuff that you can take around it to add more life to your build. You can get things like max fire res and resistance. You can get things like regen and max life. You can get max life and attack leech. The attack leech doesn't matter. We have some more life and attack leech up here, but there's a lot of different things that you can grab. This is the slot that you want it in. These 2 nodes, this node, and potentially this node, depending on what you have there, are worth taking. And this will enable that overleech so that your leeches don't stop when you get to full life and the poisons continue, because then you will start taking damage. Remember, Tainted Pact only works when you are leeching. If you stop leeching, you will die. This build is not for the faint of heart. So the next thing you need is the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule allows you to reflect poisons to yourself. This is generally a 1C item. Much like a lot of the things on this list that you need, they're going to cost you 1C. So it's not so much about cost that makes it difficult to league start. It's about getting all of your ducks in a row so that you can actually play the build. Obviously, you need the Rune Graft or the Witch Mark. I have no idea what this is going to cost. I don't think it's a very popular item because it is so prohibitive in that you need so much life recovery to use it. So I think it will be cheap. It's been cheap in the past. I think it's just a couple of chaos. The nice thing about this build being so challenging is I don't think a lot of people are going to play it, which makes it cheaper for you. Of course, the last thing we need is balanced chaos res. So here's the thing about your chaos resistance. The more chaos res you have, the less damage that you will take from the poisons that you reflect to yourself. The less damage that you take from chaos, the less you recover. So having low chaos res is actually pretty useful. With this much life, you really don't need that much chaos res to not get one shot by chaos hits. The truth is, there simply isn't a lot of massive chaos hit damage in the game. Most of the chaos that you die to is degens. So I'd say as long as your chaos max hit is somewhere between 10 and 20k, that is more than enough. As you can see in the current setup, I've got a 22k max hit with only 15 chaos res, and you can change this chaos res around to kind of see what your poison's going to be. And that's something that you're going to have to mess with. If you feel like you're not recovering enough, you need to lose chaos res. You get some built into the Ascendancy. I think there's 28 built in here. We get a couple on the tree. So basically 1 chaos res roll on gear will get you to this 15 mark. And that actually makes gearing a lot easier because you don't need a ton of chaos res. Another cool thing about Tainted Pact that I just was reminded of is that you're basically immortal to degens. Provided you're leeching, and you always should be, there is no damage over in time in the game that is going to come anywhere near how much you're recovering from your Tainted Pact. So bleeds don't matter, poisons don't matter, burning ground, none of that stuff really matters. And that really makes for a comfy play style. All right, so this video is already super long, but I do want to go through the gear a little bit and just kind of explain each piece. So basically what we have here is a 4 mod wand. These are pretty much the only mods that matter. And then you obviously have the crafted, physical as extra chaos. It's going to make your poisons bigger. But this wand will be super easy to craft with recombinators and the breach tree. You're going to want to be adding things like cast speed, things like crit, and you're going to get a bunch of these on decent bases, and then you're going to mush them together in the recombinator, and you're going to get this 4 mod, and then you're just going to craft on the last prefix. In the end game, after you go obliteration, after you have that, you can use an accumulator wand. This may allow us to drop Enduring Composure, but it will also give us Frenzy and Power Charges, which is a massive boost to our damage. Come over here to the config and we untick these. We go from 46K to 63K. You can see that's obviously a huge, huge difference. So once you can afford to make one of these, again, it's only a 4-mod item. We don't care about levels, so these are not too difficult to put together. Once you can make one, it's going to be a huge boost to the build. Next, we have a Wrathpith Globe. We don't need the Foulborn version, so it's going to be a lot cheaper. Any corruption that you can get that's useful, go for it. For our helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots, we want the most ES that we can get. And if you get a big life roll, that's great too. We're going to take some Fizz as Fire from our chest and our helmet on the implicits, but basically just as much ES as possible all gets turned into life with Sanguine Power, and it's very, very good. On the gloves, there's a bunch of implicits that are useful. You can get Leech here if you need it. You can get Poison Chance here if you need it. And then you want to do a conversion of a bunch of your Fizz over to Lightning. You don't want to convert it all. The gem converts 50% naturally, so I currently am at 83% conversion, and that is obviously more than enough for our damage. Stats are a bit of an issue on the build, so you're going to have to get a few stat rolls, but because we're going to be using the Tides of Time in order to get all these flasks up, obviously once you get a Mage Blood, these flasks become even more powerful. But with the Tides of Time, we're going to be able to have all of these flasks up at all times, and that's going to allow us to deal with our resistances largely from our flasks. Not too much exciting stuff here. We can talk about the Ool Graft that we're going to use. You can get maximum life on this, which is really, really good. You can get maximum fire res on the Molten Zoff Graft. That is also very good. But these are important for a couple of reasons. The Ool Graft is going to give us access to a buff that gives an endurance charge. Every time we drop to low life, once the cooldown is up, we'll gain an endurance charge. We're going to drop to low life every single time that we cast, and then we should be instantly healing back up to full. So pretty much every time you cast, if it's off cooldown, you will get an endurance charge. Then on the Molten Zoff Graft, what you're looking for is skill effect duration and or cooldown recovery rate. As much of both of these as you can get, or just CDR. You can actually get enough CDR to make it up full time, because we spend life will always be dropping below full life, which allows this to trigger. This is going to be another ridiculous boost to our effective hit pool. And ideally, this build should feel just about immortal. The nice thing about this is that when we're spending life down, provided this is up, we still have a huge buffer. Even if we spend our life down to 1, we still have a huge buffer from the Molten Zoff Graft that's going to protect us from small hits. Obviously, the more uptime you have of this, the better. The Unnatural Instinct is super nice. It's going to give us a bunch of regen here. It's going to give us a bunch of area of effect, a bunch of cast speed, a bunch of skill effect duration. It is all a bunch of physical damage. It's all good stuff in here. And when you overlap it with a Light of Meaning, this is for Fizz. This is going to increase all of the damage of all the things that we grab in here. And it's just a great amount of damage. We have the small cluster for Enduring Composure that's going to give us better uptime of our endurance charges that we're going to be consuming for our Immortal Call. We want to have that up as much as possible. A Jewel, you could just go crit multi in life. We're using a Foulborn Red Dream here. This serves 2 purposes. Number 1, it gives us a bunch of fire as extra chaos. We don't have a ton of fire damage, but we do have some. We get it from the Herald of Ash that we're using. So this is going to give us a little bit more poison damage, and it's also going to give us a bunch of life. So every time you have fire res anywhere around this jewel, that fire res, which you can tattoo on and get from these nodes, is going to give you life instead. You can also path out to this. I don't think it's worth it, but you could. We talked about the Light of Meaning and the Glorious Vanity. Of course, Storm Shroud. This is so you can get ailment avoidance. You don't have to go this route, but Storm Shroud is just a super cozy way to get a full ailment immunity. I haven't decided if I'm going to use this pre-Mage Blood yet or not. You can always make Storm Shroud boots, which are basically shock avoidance from an essence combined with an implicit. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a flask suffix to get a big chunk of that, and then probably use just the implicit on the boots afterwards to go to full shock void. Then we have our clusters. We'll jump in and talk about those quickly. I think this may become an Explode Chaos cluster in the end game. I'm not entirely sure, but we got some leech here, some pen, a little bit of res and damage. Nothing to write home about, but we want to enable the 2 mediums. Number 1, low tolerance and septic spells that we talked about, and then spike concoction and fasting. This allows us to have full uptime of a Tides of Time when combined with the belt being a perfect roll of 3 charges every 3 seconds for utility flasks. This gives us full uptime. Of course, you're not going to have full uptime of your silver flask and your Quicksilver flask because they require more charges. As you'll see here, it is 90% minimum, 100% average. I'm pretty sure that if you run into any issues, you can just grab a little bit more flask recovery here, and that number jumps up to 93% minimum, you could go and grab 2 more points, and that'll take you to 100% uptime. I don't think this is necessary, but it's there if you need it. Okay, so some things to look out for. Number 1, you can't run cannot leech maps, and you can't run cannot poison maps. If you're not scaling map effect, you probably can get away with running it if you have enough poison chance, but I think you're probably just going to want to avoid it. But again, you can just try it, see how bad it feels, and if it feels bad, don't run them anymore. But you have to be able to leech. If you can't leech, you can't recover, and the build doesn't work. So that means no risk scarabs, which I don't personally care about, but I know that does matter to some people. You don't have to worry. Neither of these modifiers will appear in the random pool that will be applied to maps, so you just have to make sure you don't roll them on your maps. Another thing, if you are not recovering enough life, which is probably going to be a problem that people run into, you either have too much chaos res or you're not doing enough poison damage. Early on, when you have the obliterator, you're going to be doing a bunch of fizzes, extra chaos. That will really help a lot. But once you switch off of that, you need to make sure that you're hitting hard enough and that you don't fully convert your lightning and that you don't fully convert your physical to lightning, because if you do, you won't be poisoning. The amount of damage is extra chaos that's required, or the amount that you can't convert. So I'm only converting 90% in this current POB. That can be tinkered with once you get to the end game. You can convert to 100% if you've got a bunch of fizzes extra and you hit super hard, but you're going to have to tinker with that and see how it feels. Another thing to look out for, if you don't have enough leech, just use the gem. This build will have a lot of damage, and if you just use the gem, you're going to lose 1 link of your skill, but it's going to make it so much comfier. So you can test getting leech elsewhere and then taking the gem out, but you always have the gem to go back to if you don't have enough leech. The next thing to look out for is the life tap damage and cost. Life tap adds an absurd amount of damage here. As you can see, it is 212% more damage to add life tap, but it also takes our cost from 3,500 to almost 11,000. It has a huge multiplier on it of 300%. And it also converts all of our mana cost. This is the biggest damage that you can get for this build, but it is also the biggest cost multiplier. So keep that in mind. If you feel like you have enough damage without it, you can just run Life Leech and no Life Tap. It'll make your cost way lower, and it'll be much easier to sustain. Lastly, do not switch too early. You need to have decent damage. You need to have all the things that I had on that list. If you switch too early, you will have a bad time. Keep in mind, this build is designed to be a puzzle. You get so much value out of making it work, but it is not going to be easy to play. If you're looking for something easy to play, look somewhere else. So why should you play this build? You should play this build if you're looking for a puzzle, you're looking for something fun and new to try out, you're looking to break the meta a little bit, and you're looking to be very tanky and have huge damage, provided you can build it correctly. Why shouldn't you play this build? You're not looking for a challenge. You just want something to get to level 90. You don't really want to think about your build at all. You just want to blast and be done with it. You shouldn't play this build if you are not willing to tinker. This build's going to require some tinkering. It's going to require some questions, which I will do my best to answer. And I will also be employing the help of Sticky Jim, provided he's around. And you can stop by his YouTube and drop some questions in the comments. I cannot wait for this start. I cannot wait for tomorrow. I am very, very excited for a PoE 1 restart, and I can't wait to get back into some breach crafting for this build. So thank you so much for watching. I just want to leave you with one final disclaimer. I am not an expert in Tainted Pact. There may be errors in this POB. I'm doing my best to make something cool. If you want to follow along, please do. But this is not designed to be a perfect guide. But I appreciate you for sticking around. If you did stick around, like the video. Make sure you subscribe, comment down below. Stop by my Twitch, twitch.tv/AER0___. I will be live tomorrow for the new league and then just about every day after that. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care.